What is going to be your specialization? Are all of you from finance or are some of you from other specializations as well? Can I just put it on the chat window? So I'll pick the right examples in that case. Yukta, finance, okay. Priya, finance. Finance and IT, okay. Finance. Excellent. So in any case, Visual Basic is used primarily. I would say 90% of the VBA that is used in the world is used by financial executives. So what I will do is the examples that I'm taking yesterday as well, today and tomorrow, I'll make sure I take it in finance. I have this data set with me. And remember this file also I will be sharing with you. It's a publicly available free file and this is how it looks. So I want you to take some time and get comfortable with the file. Just understand what all details are there. Okay, so what we have is, okay, Abhinav is also joined in. Hi, Abhinav. Okay, so I am not sure if Abhinav can hear me. Abhinav, we've just started, so you haven't missed out on anything. All right, I'm just introducing the data set to everybody else. Okay. All right. So let's just get comfortable with the data set, everyone. We have 5 different business segments. We have 5 countries. These countries are France, Germany, Canada, Mexico, USA. So 3 in North America and then 2 in Europe. We have different products that they're selling. Again, we have 6 products. We have different discount bands that are being offered, which means that for every transaction that has happened, either a discount was offered or a discount was not offered. Then we have the units sold, we have the manufacturing price, we have the selling price, we have the gross sales, we have discount, we have sales. So again, it's a simple formula. The sales is nothing but your gross sales reduced by the amount of discount that you have offered, right? After that, you have the cost of goods sold. So that would be the cost that the company is incurring on selling the good. So if you notice, my profit is nothing but, so gross sales minus discount will give me the sales amount, and then sales reduced by the cost of goods sold will give me the total profit that I'm earning. All right. Now, in our example, you notice that there are some negative numbers as well, right? So it's not that every single time the transaction is profitable, you would see some negative numbers as well. But if you select the entire profit column, at the bottom, you would notice the average profit is 24,000 and the sum is also a positive number, right? So it's not that the company is incurring a loss. Overall, the company is incurring a profit, but different regions might behave differently. After that, we have dates. So we have data for 2013 and 14. So if you notice carefully, we have Jan all the way up till December for 14, and for 13, we only have 4 months. So we have a data set for 16 months. Then we have the month number, the month name, and the year. And this target you can ignore, all of you. We're not focused on the target for now because this is a data set that I created out of my own. So we want to ignore the target for now, okay? All right. So I want to take a small piece of this data set and show you how a macro can be recorded. So let's quickly copy something. So I'm copying a few rows. I will open the same Excel. In fact, I'll work on a new Excel file today so that it doesn't get confusing. So remember, we save the file not as Excel SX, we save it as an Excel SN, and I can save it on my desktop. And yesterday's file was session APR 29, so I'll just call this session APR and then 30. And we'll paste this data. So Control C and then Control V. Okay. Now I'm going to make multiple copies of this sheet. So I can just hold down Control and make more copies. Now let us think that this is a data set on which the company has to constantly do some formatting. So what are the sort of things you would want to do here? Whenever you get this data from a system or from an ERP, you will want to probably put some colors. You will want to align everything in the center. So like right now, nothing is in the center. We can put everything in the center. I can probably select the last 4 columns and increase the width a little bit. So I can make it 15. So it looks a little better. And then I want to come at the end, this one. And I also want to make sure that I add some totals at the bottom, right? Now, the problem is that if you do all these actions, select the data, put a border, put some colors, increase the width, then come at the bottom and add totals. Of course, you do all of these things manually. What I want to show you is how you can record a macro. And because we have the other sheets with us, I will then tell you how you can repeat that action. Okay, so let's get started. I will make sure I start on the cell A1. Okay, there's no reason for doing that. It's just that so that we know what we are doing. I click on developer and then I click on record macro. Now there are 2 ways of recording a macro. One option is you can click on this button. The other option is at the bottom, there is a button which is this one. They are the exact same thing. It says that no macros are currently recording. You have to click to begin recording a macro. The same thing you can do from here also. When you click on the record button, it asks you what is the macro name. So I'm just going to call this, remember no spaces are allowed in this. So you don't have to call it sub. Why not? Because the word sub will be added by VBA automatically. So even though this is a module and you have to put a subroutine, you don't have to bother because VBA does it on its own. So I just give it any name I want. I just call this format table, right? So because this is what it is doing, format underscore table. If you want, you can add a shortcut, but we will not do that. And it also asks us if you want to save the macro in my current workbook, which we did yesterday, or I can save it in something called personal macro workbook, right? So this is something I want you to remember, but I will be covering this later. So there's an option called personal macro workbook, but I will not do this right now. I'll cover this later. So you have 2 options, either the current workbook or personal macro workbook. The description, remember, is just like a comment. So if you want to remember why you wrote the macro and when did you write it, so I can just say recorded to save time, formatting a table, right? And then you can say the macro is editable. Okay. The moment you click OK, the recording has started. How do you know that? In the top left corner, it says stop recording. And also the button at the bottom has now become stop recording. So it says a macro is currently recording and you have to click to stop the recording. Now macro recording only understands your keystrokes, right? So if I press any shortcut, if I press any button, if I change anything with the mouse, that is what if I write a formula, if I change a color, that is what the macro is recording. So it has nothing to do with time. So whether you wait for 5 minutes before recording every action or whether you do everything in a jiffy, it doesn't matter. So just follow the steps that I'm performing, okay? I select B2. I will press Control Shift down and then Control Shift right to select all the rows and all the columns. Then I will make them align in the center. Make them align in the center. After that, I will select my columns H, I, J, and K. Okay, so H, I, J, and K. Right click and then column width because I want the column width to be increased. So I'll make the column width, let's say 15. After that, we can select the last row. I can add a border. I can add some sum, right? So I can say equal to sum of all these numbers. And I can just copy this here, 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 and here, right? Again, maybe want to make some changes. So I will copy this entire row. This is important, okay? Control C, and I will do a paste special. So I'll do a paste special and formats, right? So the formatting is also the same. And then perhaps we can also select the last row and then color it so that it stands out. So I'll color it green. After we have done everything, we click back on A1 and then we click on developer and then stop recording. So what has happened now is that we have recorded the entire macro and we have saved all these steps, right? Which means that if I have to repeat all these actions, Just watch. I have a new data set with me. What do I do now? I simply click on macros. There's a macro called format table. And if you notice, when I say run, in one click, every single formatting is applied. Now, remember what I told you yesterday? A macro is nothing but a series of steps that are unfolding, which are executed by a single command. That means I only ran one macro, but it performed a series of tests. What is important is to remember that it is not doing everything at the same time. It is doing one command at a time. It is very important because it explains to you that you can't expect that a macro will put two numbers at the same time. It can't do that. It can do it very fast so that it seems that it is doing two things at the same time, but it is not possible to do two things at the same time. All right. Okay. What do you think? Will it work? Will it work if I add some rows? Can anybody answer this question? If on another sheet I've added some rows, do you think the macro will work or will it not work? What do you think? Okay. All right. Now, okay. So Abhinav says it won't work. What about the others? Do you think it will work or? Because the cell address has changed? Absolutely. Now, even though my first cell is not changing, the last cell has changed now. It has gone to 70. And that is why it doesn't understand that some values have been added. So when I run the macro now, macros and then format table and run, you notice that it very stupidly puts a sum. It does do the same thing, but it puts a sum in 15 and it puts a sum formula here. It doesn't care that there were two more values below this, and which is very foolish, right? What do we want? We want a macro to be smart enough to understand that sometimes there might be more rows, sometimes there might be fewer rows. But before we come to that, I wanted to see how the macro is recorded. So this is what we get. Now I know it looks like a lot, but let's just break it down into different pieces and then see what all has done. So the first thing it does is we selected the cell B2. Okay. What do you think this is? This is the comment, so I don't need it. I'll just remove it. Okay. What is this? What is range selection.end excel down.select? Quick, just keep on guessing. What is the action that I performed? Yes, it is the last cell of the column, but what is the keyboard equivalent? What is the keyboard action that I performed? I pressed 3 buttons. I'll give you a hint. Absolutely. So I pressed Control. So CTRL plus Shift plus down. Now, are you getting comfortable with how we do all of this? See, this is Control Shift down, and then this is Control Shift right. But you see the small change here? Down is called Excel down, this one, but right is called Excel to right. That means that down and up are Excel down and Excel up, but right and left are Excel to right and Excel to left. So these are the small things that you learn over a period of time, but you have to be very careful. What happens is we make a mistake sometimes. We think that, oh, if this is Excel down, then of course it will be Excel right. That is not the case. Okay, what is this? What is, this was an extra part I recorded, so I'm just going to remove this. What is this part? Anybody? What does it look like? Okay, so do you notice the part that we want to focus on? We're only concerned with this part. It says Excel Center. And if you try to type it, you notice there are different types available. So you can put Excel Center. I can, of course, put Excel Left also. This is nothing but the alignment, right? So I'll keep this as Excel Center. Okay. Then we come to column H, column K. Now we can speed up a little bit. This is simple. I selected my column. I put a width of 15. Then I selected my range of B15 to K15, which remember was this one, B15 to K15, right? The last row. And I made sure that I am putting some borders there, right? So this entire thing that you notice, starting from here all the way up till here is nothing but a border, right? Finally, we selected F15. This is the formula that we wrote, and then we copy that formula in G15, H15, I, J, K, right? And I hope you're able to see how the final code is working. Now, it is very important that whenever you record a macro, even if you're confident that the macro has been recorded perfectly, you should always go back and put these comments. Otherwise, what happens is that maybe after a month, if you want to go back to the code, you will not remember what you did. So it's a very good habit to go back and record the code. Now let us see how do we do the recording in case we wanted the code to very smartly know that I'm not selecting a fixed number of rows, but the number of rows are changing every single time. So I'm just going to quickly remove these and then make some more copies. Okay, watch this. This time I want to tell Excel that I'm not sure if my cells are starting at, are ending at B40. It could be any row. So what we do is, watch very smartly, I will turn on this button called relative references. It gives a very long explanation. You don't need to read it. Basically, the idea is that the current cell is always A1. So do you see it says if you read the second paragraph, it says, for instance, if you record a macro in cell A1 which moves the cursor to A3 with the option turned on, running the resulting macro in the cell J6 will move to J8. That means wherever you run the macro, it will always run, irrespective of whether you're starting at the same point or not. Okay. So I want to give you a small example before we do this completely. So I'll just quickly go to A1, turn on my relative references, and then record. So I'll just call this test relative. Okay. Now in absolute recording, when we go from A1 to B1, what would I say? I would say I went from A1 to B1, right? But when I do the same thing in a relative reference macro, it is recorded a little differently. Do you see this? Let me just copy this and put it above so you can see this clearly. It says active cell dot offset 0, 1 range A1 dot select. This means that I have not gone from A1 to B1. I have shifted from the cell A1 one column to the right. So what is 0? 0 means that I'm on the same row, and 1 means that I have moved one column. So I'll just do it once again so that you understand how it works. Imagine you started on B1, okay? Let's quickly record another macro. We call this test relative. Now when I go from B1 to A1, what does it do? It records active cell offset 0, -1. That means I was on the same row, but I moved one column to the left. But why is this still A1? Should it not be B1? We started on B1, right? We went to A1. So why is it again saying A1? Any ideas? It depends on the selection of the cell. Okay, let me explain it with third example, and I think you will understand it 100% now. Watch this. Imagine I started on F9, okay? So I call this test rel, and I move from F9 to E9. Now, do you see what the code is? The code is again saying active cell offset 0, -1 range A1 dot select. That means that A1 is not the cell A1. A1 is literally referring to the starting point of your relative reference macro. That means that if you start recording the code on this cell, this is the A1 for you. So watch this. I say this is my step 1. Okay. What is step 1 called? It is A1. When I move 2 columns to the right, this became my step 2. So how would the macro record it? It will say active cell offset A1 because this was A1, and it moved 0, 2. That means on the same row, it moved 2 columns to the right. But when I move from here to here, and I call this step 3, now what is happening? This is the new A1. From A1, I'm moving to the next A1. How? I'm moving 1, 2. That means 1 row down and 2 columns to the right. If I'm moving from step 3 to step 4, Now I'm moving 1 and 2 rows above and then 1 and 2 columns to the left. So it will be active cell offset -2, -2. Think of this like a grid, okay? It's a grid of different cells. And whenever you move from one to the other cell, all you're doing is you're either going left, right, up or down, right? You can't move diagonally. And that is exactly what the numbers are referring to. So offset allows you to move from one cell to another cell. When I say 1, 1, I mean one row down and one column to the right. When I say -1, -1, I mean one row up and one column to the left. If I say 0, 0, it means I'm on the same cell, right? So I hope it's making a little more sense. This is what we will use when we are recording our macro. Watch this. The first thing I will do is I will make sure that I select B2, okay? And what do we want to do? We want to identify the last cell, but the problem is that if I press Ctrl-Shift down in a relative reference, what do you think will it record? Will it record that I went from B2 to B14, or do you think it will record the last row that I have? Anyone? In a relative reference, I have this button clicked on. When I press Ctrl-Shift down, do you think it will record from B2 to B40, or will it record from B2 till the last row that I have? Great. So Abhinav, I was just explaining offset, which means that if I want to move from one cell to another cell, let's say I want to move from 1 to 2 to 3. To go from 1 to 2, I'm moving 3 rows down, and to go from 2 to 3, I'm moving 2 columns to the left. That's all. Right. Okay, so everybody, the best way to understand how this works is to see a recording. Watch. Record macro, I'll call this test rel once again. If I press Ctrl-Shift down, okay, I'm not doing anything. I'm just selecting the cells, stopping the recording, and now see the recording that has happened. It has said selection.end.xl down. Does that make sense? It means that this is the same as my absolute. Remember, even in my absolute, we were saying selection, end, XL down. But then what is the difference? The difference is that when we record the entire code, so I'm just going to create a new module. And we will record a fresh code, okay? I'm just putting a simple formula here. So I will click on record macro and I'll say add formula using relative. So watch this. I pressed Ctrl-Shift down, or rather Control down. I pressed down once again, and then I said equal to sum of all these cells, right? And stop the recording. Now the recording that has happened looks like this. It says selection and exit down, which was control down arrow. Then I moved 1, 0. That means I moved one row down. So because I went from 10 to G15, and then in G15, I'm writing a formula that says R -12 and -1. What do you think this is? Now, this is saying that this is a formula which is selecting 12 rows of data set. That means I moved -12. That means from this cell, which is control B, I moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. And I also moved one row up, and that is the range I'm selecting, which is R -12 and R -1. So on the same column, I selected rows. The first data was 12 rows above my current data, and the last data set was one row above my current data set. Right? But the problem is, why is it recording -12? How do I know that the number of rows that I have every time will always be -12? Do you see the problem? See, it's a very tricky problem. When you see the final solution, you will say, but what is the big deal? But do you see how difficult it is when you write these macros? Because the challenge is that even if you use a relative macro, the final formula will always record the number of rows you had when you were recording the macro, which means that this 12 is not dynamic. Somehow I need to make sure that this 12 is dynamic. That means that I know that my -1 will always be -1 because obviously my last cell will always be one cell above my current formula. But how do I know how many cells do I have to go up to identify the first value? Is the problem clear, everyone? Guys, is the problem clear? So what I'm doing is to just make sure this is super clear. I just put it in a new sheet, okay, with nothing else. What is my requirement? My requirement is that Excel should be smart enough to find out what is the last cell in which the formula should come, okay? But you see why even relative, a lot of people say, oh, I can use relative reference, it will record it properly. But as I showed you, even a relative reference will not work because it will always show minus 12 here, right? Okay, so this is what we do. I somehow need to get this 12 separately. Just think smartly about it. I know that there are 12 values, but how do I know that using a formula? Like I can't every time go and check how many values I have, right? So if you notice, if I have two data sets with me, one is this and one is this, the second one has fewer values. So how do I know with confidence that the first one has a different number of rows, the second one has a different number of rows? So what I'll do is I will want to find out the L row. That means, or let's just call it number of values. Let's call this val number, which makes sense. So value number. Now I know this answer should come as 12. If somehow I get this 12 automatically, then I can put this as val number. Makes sense? So let me just zoom in a little bit. So if val number was minus 12, right? What I could have done is I could have said, this is a double quote that I'm ending here, right? Because this is my first text string. I'm concatenating, not minus 12 now, I'm concatenating val number. Then I'm again concatenating the rest of my data set like this. So did you see what we did? We just broke our formula into different parts. Why did we do that? Because I wanted one part of that formula to become dynamic. It is a variable that I'm picking up, right? So let's see if it works now. So this is called add formula using relative. So I'll again click on my first cell. I'll click on developer. I'll select macros and I'll say add formula using relative. I click on run and you notice it works. Fair enough. Any questions on this before I tell you how to get that 12 automatically? Anybody would like to ask anything here? See, 90% of this was recording, okay? All of this was recording. What is the change I made? I've just made my formula break into different parts. So what I'll do is, I will just write my original formula here so that you can compare it. My original formula said like this. Right? This was my original formula, everyone. And this is the new one that I've created. So all I've done is I have taken the sum R on the left, I've added the val number, and then I've added the rest of the formula. So I've taken my formula into two parts. This is my first part, and this is my second part. And what have I done in the middle of those two parts? I've added this val number. This is the tough part, okay? Believe me, this is the tough part. The rest is fairly simple. Now I need to get that minus 12 somehow automatically. How do we do that? So I will say, let me find the val number, not by putting it manually, but by using another syntax. To do this, we can simply Google it. We can say VBA L row. So if you search for VBA L row, there are lots of examples on this. This is one of the most basic things that you learn in VBA. And there's just one line of code which looks like this. This is so common. I mean, this is used literally for every project. And I hope you're able to see why. A lot of people say, Havish, how do you know that this is a very important piece of line of code? I tell them, for any code that you're writing on any data set, of course, you want it to be relative. How many times will it happen that every time the data has the same number of rows? Very, very rare. That is why L row is almost the most obvious thing that you want. So any code that you're writing, L row will always feature in that code. You can either remember it, or I'll also explain to you how this works. You can either remember it, or you can simply sort of copy it somewhere and then paste it whenever you need it. So I'll just copy this. I will put it here. Now, what is it doing? It is saying rows.count of which column? Of column 1. That means, remember, I told you yesterday you can select cells 1, comma 1. What did it do? It selected A1, right? What do I want to select this time? In fact, let me just put it on column A so it becomes much more clear. What do I want to select now? I want to select the entire column. That means from A1 till A1048576, right? Which is the last cell of my column. So what are we doing here? This rows dot count is the same as 1048576. So I could have either written this, I could have written 1048576, or I could have written rows dot count. It does the exact same thing because the count of rows will always be 1048576. How do I prove it to you? Just watch. If I said equal to rows of column A, what is the result? It gives me 1048576, right? Because there are 10,48,576 rows in a column. Now what I'm saying is that after I've selected this entire data, I'm doing end Excel up. That means control up arrow. That means when I select my last cell, which is 1048576, 1, if I do control up, what will happen? It will always take me to the last cell. See, right now I had 14 cells, right? So when I did control up, what happened? It took me the 14. If I only had 3 numbers, if I went to the last cell and I did control up, now it will take me to the 4th row. So this is a generalized way of finding out what is the last row of your worksheet. Is this not how you do it? Whenever I ask you, which is the last row in column A, we always come to the bottom and then we do control up. Because we can't go from above to below, but we can always go from below to up, right? So this is what we are doing. We are saying the val number is equal to cells rows dot count, comma 1 and xlr dot row. But the problem is, it is going to give you the answer as 14. Let's see how it works. So if I say message box and I say val number, let's see what the answer is, okay? For a moment, I'm going to comment all of this because we don't need this code right now. Let's see what the result comes as. So we say developer and then macros, and then I say add formula using relative and run, and you notice the result comes as 14. So we're getting somewhere. We know there are 14. 14th is the last row, but I know the result I want is only 12. Why? Because one row is black at the top and one row has a heading in it. And this is the change that you will have to make. You will have to say that my number is not val number. It will be, so my val number is actually val number minus 2, and my val number is equal to val number into minus 1. So did you see what I did? I first used cells rows count to do what? To find the last row of my worksheet, of my column. After that, I know that there were 2 extra numbers in it, and I did not want 14, I wanted 12, so I reduced 2 from it. But I did not want 2, I wanted I didn't want 12, I wanted minus 12, so I multiplied it by minus 1. Now this val number can come here, right? So let's see if it works now. Okay, watch. I'll remove everything else. Just see how smartly this works. If I run my code, I say macros and add formula using rel. Guys, let me just mute everybody. Okay, so if I run my code, add formula using relative, and I press run, it works perfectly. But here is the litmus test. Will it work when I add more values? Watch. When I add more values and I again say macros and add formula using relative and run, you notice it still works. Okay. This is no exaggeration, okay? This is probably one of the most important things when you work with macros, because the bulk of what you require, you can record. Like if I want to change the color, if I want to change the data type, if I want to change the alignment, did you see we could record all of that? There's only one part which you can't record. That one part that you can't record is where you have to find out which is the last row and how many records we have in your data set. For that, this is the lifesaver. This one line of code that I've given you is the lifesaver. Similarly, if you want to find out how many columns are there, you can do that as well. Cells 1 column count and Excel toollet will tell you how many columns are there. Right? So I want everybody to take a 2-minute pause. I know we have spent a lot of time on this, but this is super, super, super important. And now tell me if this makes sense to you. So two important things. One is you have to calculate the last row, and then that last row somehow has to be put inside your formula like this, right? This is very important. So this is not needed. I'll just comment this out. This is the part that you require. Calculate the n row, put the n row in the formula that you want. Okay? That is how you make dynamic formulas in Visual Basic. Why? Because absolute or relative recording doesn't matter. At the end of the day, whichever recording you do, the recording will always remember the number of cells you had originally. It will not realize that more rows have been added. Right?
Havish, we have done this value number -2 because we have counted the blank row as well as the header row, right?
Because right now 20.
We don't need them basically.
See, if I ask you, this is 1, 2, and 3, everyone. And I ask you to put a sum formula equal to sum of these three. What numbers do I require right now? I need to know that this is C10 is C12. Or in a way, I can say that I need to go 3 rows up and I need to go 1 row up. The problem is if I find the last row of my column, what number will I get? I'll get 12. From 12, I will have to remove this 9 blank rows at the top because that will give me the number 3.
Okay.
Should I write it once again? Wait, see. What is my formula? My formula will be something like this. It will be equal to sum. Let me just copy it so that you can see it carefully. 1 second. Okay, everybody watch this. If I need to write a sum formula in the cell in which I'm just putting a color green, it says R minus 12. This will be R minus 3 because I need to go 1, 2, 3 rows up. And this will be R minus 1 because it will be, just put an apostrophe, because it will be from 1 till 3. The problem is, how do I get that number 3? Because if I find the last row of my column, I will get the number as 12. But from 12, I have to remove 9. That is how I get 3. And why am I removing 9? Because there were 9 blank rows at the top. Does that make sense? Okay, look at it this way. If your data started on the first row of your worksheet, does it make a difference? No, because your last row is actually also the last row of your data set. But the problem is that when we prepare our Excel files, we don't do this. The problem is we always keep some blank rows at the top. But you do want those blank rows to be removed from the calculation. That is the reason you have to somehow find out how many blank rows you kept at the top.
Okay.
Go back, rewatch the recording, try to practice this once you're alone. I mean, once you understand it really well. But sure, I mean, in the beginning, it might be a little confusing as to why we are doing this. But just remember, I wanted to find two numbers, 3 and 1, because I wanted to go to 3 and 1. Now, 1, I always, let me just make this 10, 20, and 30. I know that to go to 30, I have to go 1 row up. But to go to 10, I have to go 3 rows up. How do I know that I have to go 3 rows up? Because I know that my number of rows are 12, and out of these 12, 9 are blank. That is how I know that I need to go only 3 rows up. So the code that I've given you is almost like a generic code that you can copy and paste whenever you're working, literally, without a 1% change that you need to make. The reason on the internet you don't find codes like this is because on the internet, everybody tells you never start a data set in a different row. They always say start on the first row of your worksheet, but it's not always necessary that we do that. Like in our case, you notice that it's not starting on the first row. It is the data is starting on the third row, obviously, right? Okay. I also want to show you what can be recorded using a macro. So we'll do it one by one. So I'll just put my Excel on the left side and I'll keep my Visual Basic window on the right side. Okay. And it's a new worksheet. So let's not bother with this. Just watch. I'm clicking on start recording. So developer. But if you notice carefully, I'm turning off the relative button. That means it's an absolute recording. And I click on record and I call this mixed recording. All right, watch. Let me just come to my module where the recording is happening. Okay, you will have to actually see it at the bottom, but that's okay. So do you see this? It says I selected A1.select. 1 second, guys. Let me just do it one more time so that it's clear. What I can do is let me do it on a new workbook. Okay, that way there'll be no confusion. So I'll keep it on the left side. I will open my code window and I'll start a absolute recording. I'll call this mixed recording and excellent. So now you should be able to see how the recording is happening. Just see. When I click on A1, what does it say? It says A1.select. When I go to B1, it says B1.select. If I put a value in A1, I call it 10. It says selection.formula R1 C1 is equal to 10. Now you might say, but why is this? What is this R1 C1? They're just an inbuilt object and you have to use it in the same manner. For example, if I put 20 and I write equal to sum of 20 and 10, what do I get? It says selection.formula R1 C1 is equal to sum of R minus 2 C R minus 1 C. Okay. So I hope now it's making sense. If I press Ctrl B, it makes it selection font dot bold equal to true. If I align it in the center, so alignment and center, it becomes this entire line of code. And do you see why a lot of people find it confusing? They suddenly feel if selection bold is only one line of code, why is align center so many different lines? But that's how it works. That's how the code works. Okay. So you should never get worried if you feel that, oh my God, my code is becoming so long. You should always look at the comments. So this entire thing is nothing but align center. Okay. Let's do some more things. So I'm pressing Control A. What is Control A? Control A is cells.select. And if I press delete, I'm deleting everything. So I just remove all of this. Okay, again, I selected A1, but watch. After selecting A1, I put 10. Then I went to B1, I put 20, and I went to C1 and I put 30. But for some reason, after putting 30 in C1, I want to turn off the absolute recording. So I'm turning developer, I'm turning my relative recording on. So now when I move from C1 to D1, what will happen? It will not say range C1.select. It will say active cell offset 0 minus 1 range A1.select. I can put 40 here. If I again turn off the relative and I click on E1, now it goes back to absolute. So do you see what we did? This part of my code was absolute, A1, B1, C1. This part of my code became relative and then it resumed to become absolute. 99 out of 100 codes that you will be writing will be a combination. It is very rare that a code will be 100% absolute or 100% relative. A lot of people say, but how do I record a code which is both absolute and relative? Simple. You just turn the button on and off whenever you want to switch between absolute and relative recording. Okay. So if you notice, I can perform an action. I can write some numbers. This is all absolute. Suddenly I make it relative. I perform some other action. After that, I can go back and make it absolute once again. And that is why when you go to the code window, some parts are absolute. If you notice this, E4 G9 is absolute, but active cell offset 4,6 is relative. The best way to learn is to practice. You have to go back, open a blank Excel file. Start with a blank Excel file and then you can start working with your own Excel files and just perform some actions and see what all is recorded. And believe me, you will be surprised. You will be surprised to know that if I record a macro, even something like reducing the size of my window is also recorded. Do you see this? Application.width, application.height. So if I increase it again, it records that. If I increase the zoom level of my sheet, it also records that. If I add a sheet, obviously it is going to record that. Let's say something else. What if I go to view and then I go to show and then I hide my formula bar as an example. It says application.display formula bar equal to false. If I hide my grid line, it says active window dot display grid line is equal to false, right? So do you see the level of control you have over recording actions on an Excel file? If I move from one Excel to another Excel, just see what will happen. If I press Alt Tab and I move to another Excel, it says Windows, this is the other Excel dot activate, right? So a recording is not just recording what you're doing on the current Excel file. You know, a lot of people say, but oh, my VLOOKUP is a connection between one Excel and another Excel. I say, so what? VBA will have the ability of recording anything and everything that happens on Excel files, even if you have 5 Excel files open at the same time. Right? That's how smart it is. For example, if I said equal to sum, okay, I went to another Excel and I selected those cells and I pressed enter. Did you see what it did? It said the selection formula is sum, book 2, sheet 2, R4, C4, R11, C5. So it is actually going to the other workbook, going to the other sheet, and then selecting the right cells and then giving you the formula. Right. Okay, so let me just clean up a little bit. We need this file. So I will close this. And then I'll re-enable my formula part. All right. Okay, questions, anyone? So I hope you're able to see what all can be recorded. So even if you press a shortcut like Control B, Control Shift, down and right, we've already done. These things get recorded as well. So let's take a small example. Let us say that I want to record a code for my worksheet. That means I want that when a user comes to this sheet called my sheet, what should happen? The macro should automatically select these cells from A1 to C8. I'm just coloring them so that you realize this, from A1 to C8, and it gives me a welcome message saying welcome to the sheet, something like that, right? So it should automatically select the cells and give me a welcome message. Watch this. I will go to my code window. Now my code will not come inside a module because I want the code to run only in one worksheet. All the other codes that we were writing were running in all the sheets. Now my code should run only in one single worksheet. How to do this? This is my sheet, right? I will double click on it. And then I will say that when my worksheet, okay, is being activated. So how did I select that? I first selected a worksheet from here, and then I selected activate from here. The selection change is not required, so I can remove it. So what do I want when the worksheet is activated? Very simple. It should say range A1 colon E8 dot select, and there should be a message box saying hello and VB new line and application dot username. I know it looks a little odd, but when you see the result, you will understand what these are. Hello is just a text hello. VB new line basically will break your comment into 2 lines. It's like an alt enter. And application dot username is nothing but the application username of my computer. My computer's username is Havish MAD, Havish Matt. Let's see how it works. So when I click on my sheet, it automatically selects the cells. I actually select A1 to A8 and it says, hello. Why is it coming in 2 lines? Because I put that VB new line, right? And it says Havish Matt. So if you notice, if I had put VB new line 2 times, when I come back to the sheet, you notice now it says, hello, there's a blank space and it says Havish Matt, right? Similarly, you could have also set an input box saying, for example, who are you? As an example, I'm just going to comment this. I'm going to say name is equal to input box, something we did yesterday as well. Input box, and I say, who are you? And then how do I use that name variable? I say that range A1 dot value is equal to my name. All right, just see what happens. when you send a file, somebody clicks on the sheet, it says, who are you? I say, I'm Havish. And when I press OK, my name automatically appears in the cell. So this is how you can also automate forms. Like I've given you one simple example, but like we had done a user form yesterday, with more complicated user forms, you can actually ask the user for several details before he even opens the worksheet. Right? Or you could have done it in a way that you could have commented this and you could say that the range value should automatically be the application dot username, which means it will not ask me what the username is. When I click on the cell, it will automatically put my username in A1, something like this. Right? Okay, any questions, anyone? So we will take a small break. When we come back, we'll do after seeing everything we've learned, we're going to do a nice big recording of a large code. And this code is going to be like this. I'll go back to my financial example. And this is my requirement, okay? I have my gross sales. So I'm just going to copy this. Control C, Control V. Okay. And I want the user to be able to highlight the top 5 or the bottom 5 values. Now, how do we do it manually? We select the cells, we go to conditional formatting, we say highlight top bottom rows, we say top 10, and then we color it as green, right? I don't want to do it like this. I want to give the user a control where he can actually select on a user form top or bottom, and then depending on the value that he's choosing, the values will automatically become top or bottom. Right? So we'll do this example when we come back, which again will help us automate tasks. But any questions you would like to ask for that? Okay, so you can think about it. Let me know if there's any question that comes to your mind. I'll just save the file. We will come back and continue with this example. Right? We'll do a few more examples now. So now that we've learned the basics, we can now use the record macro button, and I'll tell you how to record a macro, make some small changes to it. And like I said yesterday, we'll create a more advanced user form today. Okay, great. I'll see you in 10 minutes. It's 7 o'clock. So we'll start sharp at 7:10. All right, I'm back. Any questions, anyone? So the big takeaway from what we have done in today's 1 hour session is that you can record different actions that you perform in Excel. There is a difference between absolute and relative recording. You can also do mixed recording because some parts of a code can be absolute, some part can be relative. And it is very rare that you would be able to do something productive if you simply record 100%. There will always be certain areas that you will either have to change or you will have to write it on your own. The L row concept, which is the last row, is something which is very, very important. I mean, and I'll repeat this multiple times over today and tomorrow's session. And what is the reason for that? Because otherwise, how would you find out what is the last row of your worksheet? Like we always know where the data is starting, but we never know where the data is ending, right? That's the reason the L row and the L column concept becomes very important. Any other questions, anyone, before we start doing this example? All okay for now? All right. Now, we have a list of transactions and the sales amount is there. And let's say you're doing some financial planning and you want to find out which one of these are the top 5, right? So you want to know the top 5 sales amount. Now to find the top 5, like we did earlier, we have to go to conditional formatting. We have to select the top 10, change that number, change the color. But I want to automate this process and also create a better user experience. That means the user should be able to decide how many numbers he wants to see. The user should be able to decide whether he wants to see the top or the bottom. Okay, watch this. Developer, record macro, and I'll call this CF recording because this is my conditional formatting recording. This is an absolute recording, but if you want, you could always make it relative as well. But for now, I'll keep it a little simpler. I'll just select the entire data set like this. Okay. The first thing I do is I select B3, and then I make sure I'm selecting all the cells. We click on Home, Conditional Formatting, Top, Bottom, Top 10, and I'm just coloring this green. Now we also need a code that will remove the colors. So I can say conditional formatting, clear rules, and then clear rules from selected cells. Let's also apply a bottom 10. So conditional formatting, top, bottom 10 items, and then OK. All right. Once we have done everything, we can stop the recording. And now let's see what all has been recorded. OK. So if I go to my code window, you will see we have a CF recording that looks like this. I will just put it in a new module, insert module, and I'll call this CF because this is my conditional formatting. Okay, let's break this down into different pieces. What is the first thing we want? Anyone? When the code is running, what should be the first action that is performed? Can anybody tell me? Okay, it should select the cells. Okay, excellent. So I am going to start by selecting the cells. What is the second action that should be performed? So I'm saying select all cells. What should be the next action? Think about it. Once I've selected the cells, what should be the first thing that we should do? Data formatting, and then what, Abhinav? The first thing that we want to do is to remove any formatting that is already applied. A lot of people don't realize this because remember, you can have multiple conditional formatting applied one over the other. So the first thing we should do is actually to select this part that says select selection format conditions dot delete. Remember, this is very, very important. So it says remove any existing selection. And what is the problem? When we record, we don't keep this in mind. You know, when we record, did you see I first put a format and then I deleted it? But from a logical perspective, you would always say that let's remove the older one and then let's put a new one. And now I'll say choose the type, which means choose between top and bottom, right? So I can say choose between top and bottom. So I'll teach you something new now, something we haven't done yesterday, how to write an if statement. So I will say first that my top 10, which is this entire thing, I'm going to cut and put in a different module called it sub top. Okay. And then I'm choosing the rest and I'm going to cut and put this in another module called sub bottom. Now, why do you think I've done this? Because don't you feel that my code is looking much better now? You know, rather than having one very large piece of code, it makes sense to break a code into different parts. So like I explained yesterday that you should refactor a code, you should put comments. Another very good habit that you should follow is always to break a code into different parts. What is the advantage? It looks much better. It is easier for you to edit it, to explain it to somebody. And most importantly, if there is any error that will happen in the code, you can isolate what was the reason for that error. The problem is if you keep the entire code in one go, then you might have a problem because you will not understand where the code is creating a problem for you. So I've created a code called top and I've created a code called bottom. Make sense? Okay, watch this. Now I'm saying if the user is choosing top, but where is the user choosing it from? He has to choose it somewhere, no? So I'll just create a cell called choose direction and I'll create another one called choose the number. So if you notice everyone, this is green and this is also green. Here the user can choose between top and bottom. So I can just put a data validation saying top, bottom. So the user can decide whether he wants to see the top or bottom. And the user can also choose the number that he wants to see. Now this cell is F3, but rather than remembering that, oh, this is F3 and the other one is F5, I want to give it a name. So I can just select F3, go to my name box on the left side, and I'll call this choose direction. It's like a nickname that I'm giving to the cell, okay? I will select this one. I'll call this choose number. So what do I say? I will say if the range of choose direction is equal to top, then dot value is equal to top, is equal to top, then I want some action to happen. Otherwise, I want some other action to happen. So I'll say happens, else something else happens, right? And then I put an end if. So this is the syntax of writing an if statement in VBA. So just get comfortable with it. This is not the way we write an if statement in Excel, where you write equal to if and a parentheses. We write if and then on the same line. This is very important. Remember, you can't put then on the other line. It will not work. It will give an error to you. So you have to follow this syntax. If and then will come on the same line. Then this is the first result, value if true. This is else, this is the value if false, and then you have end if, okay? So what should happen if the user is choosing top? That means that the first code should run, everyone, this one. And if the user is not choosing top, that means the second code should run. So what do we want? We want to call another code from my current code. That means I want to run my top code like this, right? And otherwise, I want to run my bottom code. And how do we do this? We can simply say call top. Okay. What is top? Top is nothing but this name that we have given. Okay. Similarly, this becomes otherwise call bottom. So let's understand what we have done. We have selected the cells. We have removed any existing format. We are checking whether the user has chosen top or bottom. So if the user has chosen top, then I'm running my first code. Otherwise, I'm running my second code. Let's see how this works. How to run the macro? Remember, we can create a shape for this. So I'll create a nice circle and I'll put different color and I'll call this go. Okay. And I'll put this here and assign a macro, which is my conditional formatting. Now see, because the user has chosen bottom, when I click on go, it will select the bottom 10. If the user chooses the top, then it will select the top 10. But this is great, right? But the problem is that I can't decide what is the number I want. So the user also needs to have the ability of deciding, right, whether he wants 5 or 10 or 15 or 20. How do you do that? So we come back to the code window. And if you notice carefully, there is a rank that is being saved here. Do you see this? This rank and this rank. This rank is denoting the number of values that is being highlighted, either top or bottom. But we don't want this rank to be 10 all the time. We want this rank to come from this cell, which is choose number. So I will say that the rank is not 10, it is actually range choose number dot value. And then I can copy this and I can put it here as well. Nothing else needs to change. The rest of the code remains the same. How does it work now? So I can say 5 and it will show me my top 5. If I say show me the top 3, it shows me my top 3. If I suddenly say no, show me the bottom 3, so I can just select bottom 3 and it shows me my bottom 3, right? Like this. If you want to have another button that will remove all the formats, I can just create one more shape. I will put a red color and I'll call this clear, right? Because this will be used to clear any existing format that I have. And then how do we assign a macro to this? Same thing. This is the part which removes the macro, right? CF recording. So what am I doing? I'm cutting this and I'm saving this as a different module. So I'll call this sub clear format. And we can call this function clear format. And this is call clear format. So do you see how clean my code is? My code looks like this. Okay. There are three paths in this code: clearing the format, running the top macro, or running the bottom macro. And I've put all my codes in different routines now, and just see how clean this looks. And then because my clear format is a different macro now, I can run this separately. So I can assign it to the red button, which is clear format. So whenever the user says, no, just remove whatever is there on the screen, I can just click on the clear button. Otherwise, what do you have to do? You have to select the cells. You have to click on conditional formatting. You have to select clear rows, and then you have to click on clear rows. I don't have to do that anymore. I can just say clear. So any questions? Just think about what we have done. We've done quite a lot of things. I showed you we can record record three macros, top, bottom, and clear format. Then we wrote another macro, another VBA code in which I wrote an if statement to select whether the user has chosen a top or a bottom. And then depending on the result they have chosen, we have also made the rank dynamic, this part, this rank and this rank. Okay. And to call another function, we can simply write call, and we can call any other module like this on the same workbook, obviously. So anyone, any questions on this? And I hope you're able to see, we could have, if we wanted to run this on two different columns, I could have chosen that. So I could have had another if statement that lets the user decide whether he wants to run the format in column 1 or on column 2. And then, of course, there'll be another module that says column 1 or column 2, and then the code runs on that.
Abhinav this side, I have a question.
Yep.
Yeah. So what happens when you are dealing with such kind of data which are huge in terms of the arrays and dimensions? What we usually tend to do is we have to take multiple decisions, like if this, then this, and then if this, then so something kind of a nested if. So here also the nested if works like the way it works in the Excel. I mean, does the position and the coding matters?
See, here you don't have a nested if because there is no parentheses that you put, but you can write a, you can write a.
Like for example, I had to choose between two things there. Like I have to choose the column also, and then I have to choose the.
You can just write and. So
okay.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So if there were two conditions, for example, it should say top and something else. So you can just say and like this.
Okay.
Right? That's all.
And if one condition is dependent on the other, then you will use a else statement for that one condition.
Then you have to use an else. Absolutely.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
You also have a select case. So you can, I will not cover it because I think an if is something we're more comfortable with. But if you are comfortable, you can just select, you can just choose for select case VBA. It's the exact same thing. How select case works is, I'll just give you a simple example. And I'm sure when you look at it, you will understand. See, score is what? Range A1 dot value. It says select case score. If case is greater than 80, then the result is very good. If case is greater than 70, result is good. Case is greater than 60, sufficient. Otherwise, it is insufficient. I could have done the same thing using three if statements also. but I can do this using a select case.
Yeah, so I was actually looking forward for this because going by my personal experiences, and you would also understand, it is
I know.
not usually the case when we have to highlight top 10 or bottom 10. It is
I know.
also dependent on the condition sometimes. Like if
So you
my
can have a
sales is
case
between this number and this number, then I have to do this or else.
So you can just write cases greater than 80 and they can say A and D and cases less than 90. That's all. Right? Like I said, with VBA, guys, one of the most important things is to know what to search for and how to search and where to search for. Everything is possible, right? It's like programming. A good programmer is not really one that who can write a better code, but also one who can search for a better code. Like I knew that there is something I can search for. That's why reading documentation is very important. And personally, I feel don't go anywhere else. On the Microsoft website, their own descriptions might sometimes be a little complicated to see, but nothing better than that. Again, I mean, I leave that up to you to decide where you should read it from. But there is no one website that I found to be the best one. I think when you start to read more, you will learn to like different websites for different things. Excellent. Anything else, anyone? Okay, let's do a different example then. We come back to my financial data set and I wanted to watch this. Okay, very cool. Very, very useful. So sometimes you have these values and you might want to hide it, right? Now, hiding it is very simple. You have to press Control 1, then you have to go to Custom, then you have to select Type, and you have to put 3 semicolons, right? And you press OK, and these numbers are hidden from the user. The numbers are still there, but the numbers are hidden from the user. So do you think it's easy? Not really. It takes a lot of effort, right? You have to select something, you have to press Control 1, or you have to click on Format Cells. Then you have to go to Custom, and then you have to apply this format. So I want you to see how we can do this very smartly. So I'll come back. Okay. Now we can do this using recording. So watch this. So I'll click on Developer, Record Macro, and I'll call this Hide Numbers. Okay. So I select my cells. This is an absolute recording again. Select your numbers, right click, format cells, go to custom, and this general becomes colon, semicolon, semicolon, semicolon. How do you bring it back? Again, you go back to format cells and then you come here and you change it back to general. Okay. And then let's stop the recording. So what has been recorded is something very simple. It says hide numbers. So I'll just put it in a new module. I'll call this hide numbers. Okay. We don't need the comments. It says select the data. This is nothing. This is just SK. This is selection.number format, selection.number format. So what I can do is I can have a toggle. So I can say, watch this. If selection.number format is equal to 3 semicolons, then I need to apply this format. Okay. Else I need to apply the semicolon format. Okay. And then I can say end if. So I've created a toggle, right? Which means that if I say if the user has already hidden the numbers, then it should show the numbers. If the user has shown the numbers, then it should hide the numbers. So how does it work? Let me just create a shape, assign a macro, and we can say hide, hide, hide. Sorry, what was the name I gave? Hide numbers. Okay. Okay, why can't I see this? Just a second. April 30th, April 30th. Have I not stopped the recording? Stop the recording as well. Okay, I'm not sure why I can't see my code. Let me see if I can see it in macros. I don't know what has happened. Wait. Okay, I can see it now. Hide my numbers, and if you notice, click, click. So you have created a toggle. Again, you might be wondering, okay, but what's the big deal? It's a very big deal, especially when you're working with numbers. It's so irritating. I'm just giving you one example. I'm just showing you having toggles is very, very handy. Like this is one toggle. I could have kept another toggle for my top and bottom. So it's like switches that you can keep. So you can just turn it on and off depending on how you want to present the results, which otherwise would have been right click, format cells, go to custom, then change this. Again, somebody said, no, bring it back to how it was. You have to again go to custom, come here, and then type general. So don't underestimate the power of creating toggles, right? The basic idea is you have to use an if here. Most of it you can record, and once the recording is done for A and B, then you can simply put an if statement, right? All right. So let me just quickly go back to the financial sample and see what else I can show you. Let's see your code. And what I want is I want a form to be populated, right? So I'm just putting just a few headings here. So I'm saying segment, country, product, discount band. And what I want is that I want a form to appear, which will ask the user for the segment, country, product, discount band. And the next value should automatically appear in B4, C4, D4, and E4, right? So we are essentially creating like a software on Excel. So let's keep it simple. The first thing we want is we want to start off by creating a user form. So let's just keep 3 things and sales and 100 and 200. Okay, let's not get too complicated. So we want segment, country, and sales. Okay, watch this. I will create a user form, which is insert user form. I will change the user form name to say enter details. And we can also change this color, something a little lighter. Okay, maybe not a pink. Just keep a light blue. All right. So we need 3 text boxes here, and we need 3 command button. 1 command button, 3 text boxes, 3 labels. So you can just copy a text box, press Ctrl C, Ctrl V, make a copy, and then press Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and then make another copy. We also need 3 labels, so I can copy a label here, change the color so that it's a contrasting color. So I just put this, and we'll call this segment, country, and sales, right? So we say segment, and then copy paste. This is country. We'll find we have the sales amount. Okay. And I'm just going to move all of these a little in the center. And then we need a command button. So I can drag a command button on this, reduce the size. Excellent. So our form is there. We can call this submit. So we want something to happen when a user clicks on submit. So we'll double click on submit. And remember, this is segment. So we can just rename it. We can call this txt segment. We can call this txt country, and then the last one becomes txt sales. All right. So double click on submit. Now we want that when the user puts 3 values in text box, text box, text box, it should appear in these 3 cells, 1, 2, and 3. So think about how we want to do this. Again, like I showed you last time, somehow we need to find the last row, because that's how I'll get to know that my value is going to come in. Cells, watch, 5, 2. Now I know that my column is always 2. What I don't know is that my row number is 5, because I need to find that automatically. How do we do this? A little different than earlier. I will again use my L row. So we can just go and say VBA L row. Just copy this one line of code. Come back and we say L row. Let's first check if it is giving us the right L row or not. So we need to find the last row in the second column, which is this one, right? B. So let's see if it works or not. If I click on submit, it tells me, sorry, message box L row. Okay, so if I run the code and I click on submit, it tells me last row is row number 4. But my value will not come in 4, right? It will come in 5. So just remember that part. So I will say that my correct value row is equal to actually L row plus 1. The rest is fairly simple. Segment should come in B5, that means cells 5, 2. So I can either write cell 5, 2, but remember the 5 is not always 5. So I can just write the correct value row that we have calculated. Dot value is equal to text segment dot value. That means I'm taking the user value that has been put in the text box and then putting it inside my cell. I can just copy and paste it 2 more times. And I can say this is 5, 3, the third column, and this is the fourth column. Okay. And then we say this is text country, and this is text sales. Let's see if it works. So I'll run my code. I'm saying my segment is, let's say, luxury. And then my country is, let's say, India. And my sales is 300. When I press submit, I get luxury, India, and 300. But it is not a good user experience, no? Because think about it. Once you put the first value, obviously you might also want to put another value. Now, who is going to come to these cells and remove the existing values? This is not a good user experience we are creating. So we also have to say that after the user has inputted these numbers, please watch, text, what is happening? Okay, I'm so sorry. So text segment dot value is equal to blank, right? I hope that makes sense. So I'm just making sure that after the user has put in one value, the text segment value, the text country value, and the text sales value becomes blank. Let's see how it works now. So when I run my code and I'm just putting something, when I click on submit, you notice it puts the value and these become blank. But the problem is that it is not selecting my first cell. I have to manually click it. So now I can also say that after the value is put and after the cells have become blank, text segment dot set focus. Okay. So let's see how this works. Again, I put some numbers. When I click on submit, do you see the cursor automatically comes to segment, right? And like this, you can create your own user forms, and only the beginning has to be absolute. Like I know that my values are in column 2 and 3 and 4. That is never going to change, right? What is only changing is the last row, because I need to find out how many rows I have. And that is what this allows to do for me, right? So any question, anyone?
So what if we want to add a summation of all these values in the last row, for example, after populating this user form?
Very good question. Now that is where it becomes tricky, okay? It's not very difficult, but just try to understand what is going to happen. Now, when there is already a sum that is here, and I'm just making sure that all of these are the same format. So just make them the same format. Okay. All right. Now what should happen is when the next row comes, then it should shift my total by 1. It should do Control X, Control V. Just think about it. So what I'll do is watch very carefully. I will select my row. If I want to add a record manually, how do you do it? You do Shift Spacebar. You do sorry, shift spacebar, you do control. What is happening? Okay, just a second. Can't insert user because okay, wait. Okay, all right. So if you have to insert a new record, everybody, what do? You do shift spacebar, you do control shift plus, and then you add a number, and you notice the formula gets updated automatically. This is something that we will have to do. So let's do it once together. Now my problem is that my last row should not be, this is the last row will come as 6, but my value is also going to come as 6 something. I hope that makes sense. L row is 6, but because total is going to be shifted down, my value will come in the 6th row, which means that I don't need to have this correct value row. So my correct value row is not +1, it is L row itself. What is the first thing we do? We have to shift my formula, right? Just think about it. I need to shift my formula. How to do this? Very simple. You can just record a macro. Watch. I'm going to record a macro. I just call this test. How to do this? We select the row, we insert a blank row, and we stop the recording. What does it tell us? It tells us that my recording looks like this. I'll just copy it into my CF, into my user form. Does it make sense? It says that we selected the 6th row and we inserted a blank row. But this 6, remember, will not always be 6 because the 6 will depend on the L row that we have. So when I say that shift my formula, how does it know that which row has to be added? The 6 cannot be 6, remember? The 6 has to be the correct value L row. So we'll have to say, let me see how we do this. So we'll have to put the L row value inside. Okay, let me see. So we say rows, and then we say L row and a semicolon, sorry, a colon, then and L row dot select. Okay, that's working perfectly. So I'm going to comment this, and I hope everybody this is clear. How do I know which row has to be shifted? Because I'm calculating the L row. So L row is going to come as 6. That means the 6th row is going to get shifted down. After that, the rest remains the same. So if you notice, this all will remain the same. Let's check this out once. See. I will run my macro. Let me say my segment is ABC. My country is India. My value is 300. So when I click on submit, the formula is not getting updated. Let me just see why not. Hold on. Oh, it's not getting. So what we will have to do is, I think the formula will also have to be rewritten, is it? Let me think. Even though it's a little odd, I would have hoped that the formula should get updated on its own. Acha, it doesn't select that. Wait a second, guys. Okay, so basically we'll have to rewrite the formula. Unfortunately, Excel will not help us do this. Let me think if there's some other way of doing this. If I insert here, then it updates the formula. So maybe I can insert a row above and then shift this value above. No, that will also not work. So maybe I do this, I copy this value above. So everybody, it has become a good problem now. Think about it. The problem is when I add a row, do you see the formula doesn't say D3 to D6? So even though we are putting a value in D6, it doesn't understand that. So I can be a little smart about it. Just watch. The first thing I'll do is I'll not insert a row here. I'll insert a row here. Then I will copy my row, paste it here. Now you notice the formula is automatically getting updated, and now the new value will come on top of this. What I'll do is I'll still do this example. You guys can go back and practice this on your own. So we'll have to do another recording. Not very complicated, just watch. I'll call this test again. We select the 5th row. I insert Then I select the sixth row, I copy it, come to the fifth row, and I paste it. And I think that should work. See, that's why they say to become a good VBA developer, you need to be very good with Excel as well, right? Because at the end of the day, it's nothing but logic that you're using here, right? So I'll just copy this, put it in my user form. And we'll have to be smart here. So we'll have to say, I'm selecting my L row, but I'm not choosing my L row. It will be L row -1. I hope everybody is able to follow that. If not, I'll explain again. Then we don't need to select this. We are doing shift down. Then we are choosing, I added one. Wait a minute. It's getting a little confusing for me also. So I added a row here. And now I'm going to the L row and copying it. Okay. So I selected it. I went down. Then I'm selecting it once again. So I don't need this. And then I'm copying it. This is okay. And then I'm going to the previous one. That means I will have to go to L row -2, is it? Let's see. Okay, what is the worst thing that can happen? It will go wrong, but I think it should work nearly 100%. I might have to spend some time on this, but let's see. So we run the form, we say ABC, India, and we say 200, and if I press submit, I think it did not do the copy properly. So take it. So this will have to be -2. Ab theek hona chahiye. So let's remove everything. Let's see. So I run my form. We say ABC, India, and then 300. You press submit. Oh God, I'm so sorry. एक मिनट रुको, अब तो करना ही पड़ेगा. If we've started it, we will have to finish it. And by the way, remember everyone, you can't do Control Z on VBA. So if something has gone wrong, there is no Control Z that will work. Okay, this is very important. I forgot to tell you this earlier. No code, whether it's a one-line code, whether it's a 100,000 line code, whatever it is performing, under no circumstance can you press a Control Z. That is why the testing on VBA becomes so difficult. Because whenever you're doing the testing, you always have to remember to do it on a dummy sheet. You can't do it on the actual data. Because then if something goes wrong, there's no way for you to bring it back. I, of course, will be able to bring it back now, but just a small learning for you. एक minute. Let me quickly see. इतना क्यों confusing हो गया? So we selected L row -1. So this is L row. We selected this and we inserted. Okay, that is great. And then we copied it. So this would again be L row -1 that we are copying, which is great. So we did shift. We selected our L row. We did Control C, and then we did L row -1 ही होना चाहिए. Then why is it not working? Let me see. But how can both of them be the same one? Wait. So I can insert. So shift, insert. Then I went to shift, insert. My L row is 6. So I go to. Acha, मैं समझ गया. So when we're inserting, we need to copy from L row, not from L row -1. We need to do L row. And then we need to go to 5, which is L row -1. Okay, I hope this will work. And I'll just make a copy just in case something goes wrong. But I'm fairly confident it should work now. Let's see. Okay, one final time, ABC, India, 300, and it works, right? So it became a good example, slightly difficult, but I hope you're able to see how we can combine three things. Something you record, something you copy from the internet, that is the L row bit, and then of course the user form is created on your own. So it's typically a combination of these things, right? Something you write, something you copy, something you record. But just see how nice this is. This is literally created like a mini software for you, where you can put some values, and then every time it will automatically keep on adding that and shifting the final row for you. And on top of it, if you want to do other things, you can do that as well. right? Any questions, anyone? So again, see, when you look at the final code, I'm sure you will see that it's not really that difficult, right? When you look at it, see, that's the problem. When a lot of people look at codes on the internet, we feel, how difficult can it be? It's just 10 lines. It's not the question of being 10 or 12 lines. It's a part where you have to do a lot of hit and try. And you have to try out different combinations to make sure the answer is coming properly. And like I said, it's just pure logic. There was nothing difficult in this. Remember, I recorded the entire thing. It's just that in your head, you have to be really clear in terms of what you want. So that is why I always suggest, please have an A4 sheet with you. Good programmers always draw it on a piece of paper before they run a piece of code. Otherwise, you will get utterly lost. Okay. Let me remove all these other things. We don't require this. Good. Other questions, anyone? So I think we've done quite a lot of record macro today, and I hope you will be feeling comfortable with that. And it's good because you asked me a question to which I did not have a ready answer. So you were also able to see how a VBA programmer works. What I did just now in front of you, this is the exact same way that I work on any project. I make a copy, then I write some code, little at a time. Okay, so I don't write the entire code. I write some pieces of a code to make sure that some bit is at least working. And then when I feel more confident, then I keep on adding more elements to it. Right? Like right now, what I don't like is that there is no border. So probably we can run another piece of code to also add a border. How do you do that? Just to give you an example, watch. Developer, record macro, test. I can click on B2, press Control A, and I can add a nice all border, and I can also add a thick outside border. But remember, सब कुछ करने से पहले you have to remove the existing border. So we also have to remove the existing border. ठीक है? एक बार फिर से कर लेते हैं, just so that we are clear. So record macro, again test. Select B2, press Control A. You want to put no borders so that any existing borders are removed. You want to put all borders, and then finally you want to put a thick outside border. Once everything is done, you can stop the recording. Now remember, border recording is a very large code, so don't worry that it will look very large. This entire thing is this test that I performed, but we don't need to worry about it. Why? Because I can just cut it, go to my user form, just paste it here, remember, and we can call this border code. So we can just say this is my borders. And after everything is done, so after my values have been put, I can just call my borders code. Right? I know it looks very large because the recording of a border is always many lines of code, but let's see how this works. So if I've done everything correctly, it should add something, remove the first one. Yeah, it should work. Let's see. So India, hi, then India, and then 300, right? And just see how clean this works, right? Did you see it? Perfect borders. So a little bit at a time, you can keep on adding multiple elements. Like you could also tell a user, just listen to this carefully. If the user is writing hi or maybe a country in lowercase, just watch. If the user writes India like this, अब उसने तो गलती किया है, but that doesn't mean that you want to show it like this in your form, because then you will have to clean it up in the form. So what I can do is, I can forcefully say that even if the user has chosen India as a lowercase, in the form it should come as uppercase. How do you do this? Again, we can just Google, we can say VBA uppercase. It's called U case. There's a different function, not upper, it's called U case. And if you notice, it says, very simple, it says U case of my string, like you do equal to upper. So if you notice, what I'm doing is, I'm making sure that when the user's value, which is text country.value, is coming inside my cell, it is coming as U case like this. And do you see how this works now? This means that if the user is writing hi, but he wrote India like this, किसी वजह से he wrote it incorrectly, it will not matter because the final result will still come. I misspelled it, but you get the idea, right? It will still come as India like this. So that is how you can make these small modifications to a form, and which helps you going forward, because going forward it will not create problems for you, right? Cool. Questions, anyone? This border one I'm removing for now, because remember, the border one will have to be a relative macro. We haven't done that now. So that it doesn't confuse you, because we selected B2, D7, but remember, it should not be B2, D7. It should be B2 and the last cell. In fact, we can do it. So 7 is going to be the last row. So I can simply say call borders new L row is equal to new L row, and this is not 7, remember, this will be D. You'll have to give me a second. And new L row, and just a second. So B2 colon D, and then I'm choosing and one second. Choosing B2. So, then this will not work. 1 second. Okay, you know what? I think let's not focus on this too much for now. I'm removing the borders. If you want, you guys can practice this on your own. Let's not complicate this too much. Right? But I hope the rest of it was very clear. We created a form. We connected every text box in the form to a cell, but the cell column we know, but the row we don't know. So we calculated the L row here, and this entire part we were doing only because we had a formula. Otherwise, it would have been much simpler. But we first have to shift the formula, create a blank row, and then put the new values inside. Okay? Then some additional things. I showed you this U case. I showed you the set focus, and the fact that after every input, the existing text boxes should become blank. If you want that after the user has put in all the values, it should close the form. Then you can simply say unload me. I think I did this yesterday. So unload me allows you to close a form. And see, whenever you don't know the answer to something, just Google. You can say VBA close a form, and it will tell you that to close a VBA form, you can just say unload, right? So like this, whenever you don't have the answer to a question, because see, in programming, you will have hundreds of questions that you would want to ask. The best way is to do something like this. Also, one last tip. When you write a code like this, you notice sometimes the indentation doesn't come properly. So all these tabs and all, if you don't put it, you can go to this website. It's called Automate Excel. So you can simply say VBA code indent. Okay. And there is a website called Automate Excel that has a VBA formatter. What does it do? You can just copy your own code, Control C, Control V. The website is still loading. 1 second. I'm not sure why it's taking so much time. 1 second. Okay, Control V, you click on indent, and you see what it did? It automatically created some correct spaces for you. And like this, you can use any code that you want, like this conditional formatting one. Do you see this? My code doesn't have the right spaces in it. If I click on indent, it will automatically create these right tab points, the right indents. It's very, very handy. I mean, this is remarkable, that you get something like this for free. Because as a beginner programmer, you will not know where to put it, where not to put it. How do you learn it? Very simple. You just put it on this website and it will convert it for you. Right? Excellent. So you know what? I was just thinking about it. Since I haven't done these 6-hour trainings earlier, usually I do smaller trainings like 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours. If you want to have a session tomorrow, we can always do that. If you feel you want to wait for some days, practice a bit, and then do the third session, I'm okay with that. I'm okay either way. I mean, you want to do it tomorrow, we can. If you want to do it maybe on Monday or Tuesday, you can decide the time. It's a small group. There are only 6 of us. So you guys can let me know however you are comfortable. No, Abhinav, and for everybody else's reference, let me share with you. These are good questions, So, of course, sometimes you get too distracted with one problem, but this way you get to learn so much. Otherwise, I would never have shown you how to shift the row and how to put it totally, right? So it's good. When you ask questions, I'm also able to teach you something. So why don't you guys put on the chat window and we can vote whether you would like the session tomorrow. If not, then on what day would you like it? We can't do Saturday and Sunday because I'm completely packed. But any weekday, for that matter, I think Sunday also should be. You guys can decide. I mean, let me know whether you want it next week or whether you want to finish everything tomorrow and then practice all the 6 hours at the same time. So, what do you think? Guys, tomorrow or later? When would you like to have the last session? Yeah, I mean, I leave it up to you. Like originally, my plan always is that I cover trainings in a rhythm because if you have a break, okay, I guess we should do it tomorrow. Great. I just thought I'll share it with you. In any case, if you have any queries afterwards, you have my number, you have my email. You're more than welcome to call me at any point of time. Right? Excellent. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. We did quite a lot of things. We mostly did record macro, but I hope you were able to see how important it is to learn the code so that small modifications can be made here and there, right? Of course, I'll be sharing the file with you. I will also be sharing the recording with you so you can have a look at that. Okay? Excellent. So thank you once again, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks, Priya. Thanks, Yukta. Thank you, Shashank. Thanks, Shri.